This is Buffalo's Uncensored Sports Show. You're watching Buffalo After Dark. Welcome, Buffalo After Dark, everybody. It is Monday night, July 1st. It is our last show of the season, and we figured, you know what, let's cover the 2024 NHL free agency because we have a lot to talk about and over $1 billion in transactions today.
Yeah, big time. So this is our last Buffalo After Dark episode of season 4, and then we're back on track in September for season 5. And we have a lot of big changes coming up, and we're excited to announce that towards the end of the show. But in general, yes, there has been over $1 billion spent today on the first day of July in free agency for the NHL.
Yeah, and it's crazy. I mean, even the Sabres, to an extent, made some deals today, although it's like practically non-existent, which we'll talk about as we go through. But there were some major things that took place today, and of course, if you want to jump on the show and give us a call, 929-205-6099, and of course, we are live on YouTube, so you can of course watch us as we go throughout the next hour or so, and you know we're happy to do it. But let's jump right into some of the big deals, because right now today, the Florida Panthers, the Carolina Hurricanes, the Nashville Predators did a lot of stuff today. And there were some big moves by the Tampa Bay Lightning as well. But I would say let's kick it off with the Nashville Predators because they made some major impact in the market today. How about the fact that they ended up signing forward Steven Stamkos, Jonathan Marchessault, and Brady Skye?
Those are all big contracts, and not to mention a week prior, UC Saros, who was on the verge of being a UFA, got a massive 8-year deal for $61.92 million, which is about $7.74 million within the cap. But yeah, to your question, yes, Brady Shea, Jonathan Marchessault, and Steven Stamkos all signed contracts today with the Nashville Predators. And Steven Stamkos is probably the biggest one out of them all, considering that I feel like there's something in the air with the Predators. They're really trying their best to really be able to compete for a cup with all these veterans. It's insane.
Yeah, 100%. And here's the thing. I mean, Nashville has had some really good teams over the years. I mean, they've made some pretty decent runs. And I think right now, with what the Predators did today, they're trying to send a message that's like, hey, we're going all in and we're going to try and win this thing this coming season. Whether or not that happens, only time will tell. I mean, they still have to build out the rest of their roster for this season, but that was some pretty serious noise that they made in the market today.
Without a doubt. And I will say this, the contracts for all three of those guys, from Stamkos, Shea, and Marchessault, is insane. So we'll start with Stamkos because that's the big one that came out.
Mm-hmm.
And after 16 years in Tampa Bay, Steven Stamkos defects from one no state income yeah, I can't fucking talk. One state income tax state to another. So no income tax in the state of Florida. The same could be said in
Yeah.
Tennessee. Yep. So Steven Stamkos signed a 4-year deal worth about $8 million, and his cap hit is $42 million per season within that span. And he signed it today with the Nashville Predators.
Good for you, Stamkos. Good for you. You
I
got
mean,
you got a team that was willing to pay up.
absolutely. And the thing too that the Predators of all teams, yeah, the Predators. I had a feeling Nashville was in the race for Stamkos because I've heard his name being connected to Nashville since like April, like since like the day after Tampa got eliminated from the playoffs. And there was teams like the Canadiens, there was teams like the Leafs, obviously the Panthers, the Predators, and there was even the Devils from earlier today, and the Red Wings, the Sabres were trying. I don't know, but regardless of how that's looked at, Steven Stamkos got a really fair contract from the Predators,
Mm-hmm.
and with him being at 34 years old, he'll be 38 by the time the contract ends, which I think is a great deal for the Predators.
Yeah, it truly is. I mean, it boosts them. I mean, it gives them some solid players to build off of. So So that was definitely a good move by Nashville, I think, in that part, bringing in those three players right off the bat. And then on top of it, since, of course, Stamkos left Tampa Bay, let's talk about who Tampa Bay brought in to replace him: Jake Gensel.
Yep, and immediately after the trade, which took place Sunday afternoon, the Carolina Hurricanes received a 2025 third round pick in exchange for the UFA rights for Jake Gensel. And sure enough, Jake Gensel yesterday signed a 7-year deal worth about $9 million. My God.
Woo. Man.
Yeah, that's a big like contract that you would be
Yeah.
given.
Yeah. Big
Like
money.
holy, big time. Big
Yeah.
time.
And Boston was doing the same thing because they got their new number one in Elias Lindholm, and then of course now we got to see Nikita Zadorov back here in the East because they ended up bringing him in, which means he's going to be beating the shit out of us on defense.
Yeah, that was a big one. So Nikita Zadorov, but here's the issue with both of Boston's contracts. Both of them are phenomenal. The issue is the length. 7 years for Lindholm, by the way. 7 years, $7.75 million is the cap hit. In
Mm-hmm.
total is $54.25 million with Elias Lindholm to the Bruins.
Yeah, it's a lot of the cap.
Yep. And as for Zadorov, 6 years, $30 million, which is $5 million per season.
Again, a lot of cap.
Without a doubt. And then if you go back to Nashville, Stamkos obviously we said got 8 million. But if you look at the other two players they got, Brady Shea and Jonathan Marchessault, Brady Shea got 7 years for 49 million. So he got a 7x7 with the Predators
Right.
from the free agency. And then of course the 2023 Conn Smythe Trophy winner, Jonathan Marchessault, signed a 5-year, $27.50 million contract, and his cap
Mm-hmm.
hit is 5.50 million going forward at age 33.
Yeah, it's it's definitely interesting like how it all worked out. And I mean, and don't get me wrong, Stammer is a good player. I mean, actually all of them are, but I mean, it's one of those with Boston though. Man, they're gonna be looking back at it, and it's a little bit rougher, just thinking about it. But then here's another thing: the Florida Panthers made a ton of moves today, so. So we'll kind of go through all of them, and let's just say first who ended up leaving. Brandon Montour leaves for the Seattle Kraken. Ryan Lomberg leaves for the Calgary Flames. OEL leaves for Toronto, which I'm like, oh fuck, now we got to deal with him a bunch of times a year. Kevin
Yeah.
Stenlund goes to Utah, and Anthony Stolarz goes to the Maple Leafs. But the former Sabres, Dmitry Kulikov and Sam Reinhart, are staying. And just think about Reinhart, who ended up being the savior for the Panthers. 8 years, 69 million with 8.625 annual average value on the cap.
That's a great deal. I mean, considering what the Florida Panthers have been trying to do, they've been trying so hard all season long to sign him to a massive extension. But lucky for Sam Reinhart, he honestly deserved it. So when you have that kind of money lying around, because Florida, let's be honest, Florida was only able to keep so many people, and I think they didn't want to lose Reinhart because if he
Mm-hmm.
wasn't signing with Florida, there was a guarantee he was going to go to Chicago. But that obviously is not going to happen. But that's also what happens when you score the cup winning goal just a week ago. And now you earned yourself a nice hefty contract like that. But I'm happy for Sam. He deserves it.
Yeah, and he played well. I mean, he is just really clicking on that team, and unlike the Sabres, they're actually utilizing the way that he should be utilized, and they're getting the rewards out of it. So
It's just embarrassing when you think about it. Like
yeah,
the teams that the Sabres have had within the last few years, those could have been cup contending teams. But nope, the Sabres just do exactly what they do every time. And that
exactly,
is just waste potential.
exactly. Yeah, the Washington Capitals made some moves. They added Matt Roy through free agency, and they also brought in Jacob Chikrin through a trade that sent Nick Jensen to Ottawa.
And not to mention, they also gave up a third round pick in 2026 for him.
Yeah,
So, yeah, the Caps, they're really trying to go all in because we were talking about a couple of weeks ago how they brought in Pierre-Luc Dubois. And then, of course, they made that trade in day two of the draft on Saturday with the Buffalo Sabres.
right.
And they ended up trading Beck Malenstein to the Sabres for the 43rd overall pick, which is a second round pick in 2024, which I think for the Caps, that's a great deal. But for Buffalo, that's an overpay.
I was gonna say Melenstein. I would say if it was like a third round pick, then it'd probably be more comparable. But I did look at it, and actually, for anyone who hasn't seen Bob's video, go to his channel on YouTube, and he breaks it down a little bit. Melenstein, he is durable. He only missed one game this past season, and he is definitely a penalty kill specialist, which, for what it's worth, it can be useful. Because anyone who has watched the Sabres the last several seasons knows our penalty kill is not the greatest. Our power play unit is not the greatest. So, adding someone that can control the puck, especially in those situations, is good. And plus, he's not afraid to drop the gloves because, of course, we know Jordan Greenway won't. I mean, he'll be like, "Oh yeah, let's go ahead and fight," and then when it comes time to fight, he just doesn't want to do it. But pussy.
Well, I mean,
But
Trevor's
anyways,
brought it up before.
yeah. But in that sense with Malenstein, I mean, yeah, you're not. I mean, it's not a bad signing. I just think a second rounder for him though is a reach.
I even said it was a massive overpay because you're basically paying for a guy who scored only 8 goals, but yet led the team in hits. Like, come on. Like, I understand where, Lindy Ruff and Kevin Adams are coming from as far as adding grit, but you don't pay a second round considering all the other odds that I'm not really sure if he's going to be like that impactful player, specifically for the fact the Sabres gave up a second round pick for him.
Right. Right. And as long as we're talking about the Sabres, let's throw in some deals that happened today. So Jeff Skinner, obviously, we bought him out, and he is now a member of the Edmonton Oilers. And then, of course, Zemgus Girgensons, who many thought he would have been gone years ago, he is gone also.
Yep. So Jeff Skinner is finally getting a chance to see the Stanley Cup playoffs for the first time in his long career because he's been in the league now for about 13 years. So he's getting an opportunity, and he will get to do so with Connor McDavid, and he's
Yep.
going to be playing for them now for 1 year, and the cap hit at 30 million.
Whew, man.
Yep, 3 million for Jeff Skinner in Edmonton. And
Yeah.
as for Gergensons, he's getting a 3 year deal worth about $2.55 million, which the cap hit makes it at $850,000.
Yeah. So actually, pretty friendly contract for him.
A depth move for Tampa. I mean,
Right.
at least compete for the playoffs. And my time in Buffalo is coming to an end, and I want to go play for a contender. And Tampa is the one knocking on the door.
Right. And really, the only time that Zemgus Girgensons really was able to shine was under Ted Nolan. What does that tell you?
It tells me a lot. It tells me that the Sabres developed him very, very poorly. It also tells me that they were not willing to send him down to Rochester when they needed to because he was their shiny new prospect at the time with Nikita Zadorov, and it just didn't really work out that way. Oh no, it wasn't Zadorov. It was Mikhail Grigorenko, where they were drafted.
Good
Yeah,
job, Darcy.
you can also blame him for the development of Zemgus Girgensons,
Yeah,
but
exactly. They rushed him,
exactly.
and now
So
he's not
that's
even in
why.
the NHL.
Yep. So that's why he's the way he is now, which is
Yep.
unfortunate. But what can you do?
Yeah, and especially since they buried Grigorenko on, no, especially since they buried Jorgensons on the fourth line and just never gave him that opportunity. It's like, hey, now in Tampa, you're going to have an opportunity, and you're going to be playing with good depth players.
Absolutely. And you know what? It's very strange because the money that the Sabres got, I think before today, they had about $31 million in cap
Mm-hmm.
space, and they hardly used it. Like, yeah, they were a little like underwhelming in terms of free agent signings, but we're gonna go over
So as we're going through it, if you guys want to give us a live, so if you want to join us, Rob's probably got to be in a fairly good mood today about the Devils because they end up adding Brett Pesce and Brendan Dillon.
Yeah, the Brett Pesce one is very interesting because he's actually about an hour from me. He's from Tarrytown, New York, which is west of the part of the city. So he's about an hour, about $33 million among the entire 6 years. If he sees through this whole contract, there's a very good chance that Brett Pesce will be 36 years old by the time his contract
Mm-hmm.
ends.
Yeah. So I mean, hey, it boosts the Devils and good signings by them. And then Toronto, they made some noise today because they decided to add defenseman Chris Tanev, and they added OEL, and then on top of it, they signed Stolars and they re-signed Joseph Walls, so they have a goaltending tandem, and they ended up adding some good defensemen and good forward on top of it.
Yeah, so the Tanev deal is very interesting because Tanev's deal is 6 years, 27 million, and his cap hit is 4.5 million. And he's 34 years old. Why the fuck did the Leafs just give a 34-year-old a 6-year extension? Can you explain that to me?
No. I mean, I know Tanev's a good player, but it's like, Jesus, you're like on the opposite side of your prime.
Like that to me is just desperation because to me Toronto needs all the help with the blue line they get. Like I can understand, Oliver Ekman-Larsson because his contract is reasonable. But
Right.
Tanev, I know they've been linked to him for
Right.
a while. Like I know the Leafs have been like linked to him for a few years, and they tried to get him at the trade deadline, but it didn't really work out in their favor. And then now when he becomes available and they trade for his rights, it's like, okay, Chris, we want to keep you in Toronto, but how much longer do you want to stay for? I feel like the Leafs are being hoodwinked just for the fact of the length of his contract. And yeah, I know the cap hit's not that very big at $4.5 million, but the Leafs right now have bigger issues to worry about because they don't have any goaltending aside from, getting Joseph Wall resigned, which by the way is almost $11 million for 3 seasons, and his
Right.
cap hit is 3.66. The fact that the Leafs are in this stonewall right now, it really speaks volume about the Toronto Maple Leafs because they can't really do anything without going over the cap, and they can't really do a whole lot without going under the cap. So they're
Right.
kind of stuck in limbo unless they, of course, get rid of Mitch Marner. Then that's not going to happen, and it hasn't happened yet because there were rumors about him being traded, but obviously that hasn't gone anywhere. But the point is, the Leafs are in such desperation with the signing of Tanev that it screams volume to me.
Yeah. Oh, just picture how Luffy's reaction would be if they got rid of Mitch Marner.
He's probably expecting it at this point. And
Yeah.
then as for Oliver Ekman-Larsson, he got a 4-year deal worth about $14 million with the cap, and the cap hit is 3.5. And he's 32 years old. So again, you're paying 30, 32-year-olds a massive extension. Like that one is not as bad as like Tanev, because by the time Tanev is, if he sees all the way through his contract, he'll be 41 years old.
Yeah.
That's a massive extension.
I know. I mean, we know Toronto. Yeah, you basically can't get past the first or second round ever. So
No.
it's like you're going into panic mode, and it's like how much do you have to do to get you past that second round, especially with Matthews and
Yeah.
Marner and everybody. It's like, yeah,
The Leafs just cannot help themselves. They just cannot help themselves.
right, yeah, they
But
seriously can't.
I will say is that Anthony Stoller's contract, the Stanley Cup champion backup for Sergei Bobrovsky with the Florida Panthers last week, is getting a 2-year deal worth about $5 million from the Toronto Maple Leafs, and the cap hit is 2.5 mil, and he's 30 years old. So Toronto's backups, and I should say their tandem for next season is going to be Anthony Stolarz and Joseph Wall.
Mm-hmm.
Those are their 1-2 punch is Wall and Stolarz. Like,
Yep.
and then Ilya Samsonov just got a 1-year, $1.8 million cap contract from the Vegas Golden Knights. And that right there, it's just like, again, going back to what I was saying earlier, is the Leafs are so desperate to win a Stanley Cup that they're willing to just throw money out to players that hope it just sticks. With Tanev, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's how desperate the Toronto Maple Leafs have become.
Yeah, it's crazy. And then here's another thing that, and I want to touch on this because the Islanders made a move today, and I know you want to talk about this. Anthony DeClaire is now an Islander, and he's actually going to give that offense a boost.
Well, yeah, that's for certain. But Anthony Duclair is signing with the Islanders for 4 years, $14 million, and his cap hit is 3.5 million. So in general, I like this deal for two reasons. For one, he doesn't have to constantly sign a 1-year deal. Two, he doesn't have to be traded for another couple of years.
Yeah.
And the nice thing too is that he's only 28 years old. But Anthony Duclair is already on his ninth team.
Yeah, that's insane.
hmm I think he was on like I know he was drafted by the Rangers. Then he was in the Keith Yandle deal all those years ago from
Right.
the Rangers to the Coyotes. And then I think he was on Ottawa, he was on Chicago. He was obviously on San Jose, he was on Tampa,
Right.
and my thoughts are blank because he's played for so many teams I can't keep up.
Was he with the
And
Red Wings at one point also?
I don't think so. But I want to say yes, but I'm not going to say no because I truly don't know. But I do know that he definitely played for San Jose because he was just on that team. Oh, he was on Florida. That was one team he played for. Yeah. Okay, so we have the whole list. So he played for the Rangers, the Coyotes,
Yep.
the Blackhawks,
Blue
the Blue
Jackets.
Jackets, the Senators, the Panthers, the Sharks, the Lightning,
And
and
now
then
the
the Islanders.
Islanders. Oh
And
my
then the
God.
Islanders, yeah. He's going to be 29 years old in a month.
Journeyman NHLer.
That's embarrassing.
Yeah, seriously.
But it's not his fault though.
Right. And actually, talking about the Blue Jackets, how about them signing Sean Monahan, which brings him back with former Flames teammate and line mate Johnny Gaudreau?
I mean, that's really the only thing they've done, let's be honest.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't say much. We're Sabres fans, but at least the Sabres were a little bit more proactive than Columbus.
Yeah, very true. And then the Rags, they acquire Riley Smith in a trade with Pittsburgh, who decided to sign center Sam Carrick.
Yep, Sam Carrick is getting a 3-year, $1 million deal by the New York Rangers. So, in general, that's not a bad cap hit. But as far as everybody else is concerned, who else is on the board we could talk about? Oh, Vancouver. That's another team
Mm-hmm.
that Vancouver was a huge player today
Yep.
among free agents. And then we'll get to Chicago because that's another team that did really, really well today. Vancouver, their first big move, I would say, throughout the day was Jacob DeBrusk.
Yes.
Holy fucking shit. Did you see the contract they gave him?
Big contract.
7 years, $38.5 million. So that's about a $5.5 million cap hit with the Vancouver Canucks. And he's 27
Yeah.
years old, which is a good age, but usually this kind of contract does not age very well.
Mm-hmm. Very true story. And right around that same time, I mean, Chicago did a lot, San Jose did a lot, and then of course Edmonton made some other moves as well. So let's kind of go through it. So besides DeBrusque going to the Canucks, Tyler Toffoli and Alex Wenberg ended up signing with San Jose Sharks, which that's going to be a huge boost to their rebuild. And then of course on top of it, the LA Kings were big players. They signed Warren Fogle and Joel Edmondson, and then of course Connor Brown and Corey Perry, which we touched on just a tiny bit earlier, went to Edmonton, and Victor Arvidsson and Josh Brown also go to Edmonton. So those are a couple teams right there that made some pretty big moves right off the bat.
Yeah, and the Sharks also brought in Alex Wenberg for 2 years, 10 million, which is about $5 million per
Yep.
cap. So he's going to San Jose. Um, yeah, and you were mentioning Tyler Toffoli. He went to the Sharks today for 4 years. I think it was for like 6 million. I'll have to find his contract, but it's a pretty lengthy deal. As I remember seeing it, it was a 4-year deal by San Jose. So I want to just be sure that's right before I jump to any conclusions. But
Yeah.
but that was a huge deal that for the Sharks to get Tyler Toffoli because I just don't understand. Like, what was it that possessed him to go to San Jose? They're a rebuilding team, and I'm not
Right.
saying the Sharks are bad. I mean, they're terrible on paper, but like it just as a general team, like they're not terrible. But it just surprises me. Like, are players just all of a sudden just saying, I want to go play for San Jose?
Yeah, I like had to think about it for a moment there, like when that happened. But I mean, good for San Jose though. I mean, they're getting some pieces in there, and then on top of what happened in San Jose, Chicago made a lot of moves today, which they actually went after 7 players. So how about the fact that they added Tovo Teravainen, Tyler Bertuzzi, Craig Smith, Pat Maroon, Joey Anderson, and then they
Laurent
ended up,
Brossoit.
yeah, they added goalie Laurent Brossoit, and then they added defenseman Alec Martinez, and just picture that now with the fact that you have Connor Bedard there, they got him
Yeah,
some immediate help.
and they also got Pat Maroon for one
Mm-hmm.
year at 1.3 million.
Yeah, so they decided, you know what, we're gonna build around Connor Bedard by bringing in some veteran experience and also bring in, people that are a little bit older on the younger side of veterans, but I mean, Chicago decided, hey, let's go ahead, let's kind of end the shit show, and let's bring in some decent players here.
Yeah, and they also brought in TJ Brody for 2 years at $7.5 million. and his cap hit is $3.75 million. So
Yeah.
in general, TJ Brody is 34 years old, but he's gonna get a chance to play with Connor Bedard. But again, this is also what happens when you get aggressive. Is Chicago had all this cap and they had to work something with it, and they were able to find a dance partner for the majority of the players that they signed. Like
Hmm.
it's just insane to me to think that the Blackhawks, who were one of the worst teams in the last couple of years, all of a sudden now have an opportunity to go play with Connor Bedard. I mean,
Yeah,
that's a big jump.
and to be pretty respectable on top of it.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, Chicago's definitely making some moves. I don't think they're done because it's only the first day of free agency. So I'm not entirely, they have so much cap, but I have a feeling that they're going to make a trade or two just to improve, the team in general. Because
Right.
if you're a Sabres fan, you can't tell me with a straight face that, that you actually like the core that they currently have.
No, they have to make changes. There's hell yeah, they need to do way more.
Well, the other thing too is that a lot of people have been pointing out, well, it's great that they're bringing in veterans, but you're basically filling in depth roles. I'm like, yes, I agree. The Sabres need help in that position, but you're also bringing in guys who have made it to the playoffs a handful of times. Like the main one that I was most excited for was Sam Lafferty, and
Hmm.
his contract is it's pretty lengthy, I'll say that. It's not a massive deal either, but it's like just enough to kind of get them playing. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Right. And it's like one of those, I mean, we probably won't have to worry too much about a buyout scenario in this case. But at the same time, you're getting someone that has tasted the playoffs, who has been there,
Yep.
and can also play some top minutes as needed. So that's not a bad thing in this
No.
specific case, but there's a lot more that needs to be done.
Yeah. So Sam Lafferty's contract with the Sabres is 2 years, 4 million. So he's only making 2 million for the next 2 years. So that's not terrible. And I was honestly kind of surprised when I heard that Sam Lafferty was coming to the Sabres. I also, because I was actually running errands at work today, I was out of the
Hmm.
park. So when I heard the news that they were getting Sam Lafferty, I said, okay, I kind of just said, all right, well,
Yeah.
that came out of left field. The same with Jason Zucker, who only signed a 1 year, $5 million cap hit, which I have a feeling if the Sabres are not in it for the 14th year in a row, they're gonna flip Zucker to a contender.
Oh
That's
yeah.
how I feel about this.
Yeah. Which I was gonna say it, and they also re-signed Jacob Bryson, so that was one of the other deals that ended up happening. But at the same time, it's like, if we're not going to hit it for the 14th year in a row, it's like Earth the Pagula, wake the fuck up.
Yeah, but no, he's too stubborn to do anything about it. But the one other thing too that came out was the Sabres brought in Nicholas Obkabul, who was the guy. If you, I'm sure you've heard his name before. He
Mm-hmm.
remember that infamous video that went viral, maybe I want to say 2 years ago, when
Yeah.
the Avalanche won the Stanley Cup and the
Yep.
guy dropped it. That's who this is.
Oh Jesus.
Yeah, and he signed with the Sabres for 1 year and $1.5 million just for this year. And he's only 28 years old. So that's not terrible as far as his age limit,
Right.
but this is the best they could probably do at the moment.
Yeah. Yep.
So, my God.
I
I
know.
mean, but it's just free agency is so interesting because you see all these movements coming into play. Like the first night is starting to slow down, but there
Mm-hmm.
will be more names that are going to be coming out pretty soon, and I'm excited to
Yeah.
see it.
Yeah.
But I just feel like the Sabres with these two guys, both Laverty and Zucker, I feel like these two guys next season are going to have to really show me what they can do based on what we have to judge on. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's very true. And right now, do I think that the Sabres are done? No. And I would hope that they're not, because basically with just making those smaller deals, I mean, there's enough cap that we can easily go in on some bigger players. The whole issue now though is, do they actually want to come to Buffalo? That's going to be the question that has to be answered. But time will tell as we go into free agency, because we're only like almost at the end of day one, so there's still a lot of things that can happen. But with that being said, I mean, there are some other moves that happened throughout the NHL today. I mean, Carolina resigned defenseman Jacob Slavin and Jordan Martinook. Seattle ended up signing Montour and forward Chandler Stevenson, so they made some moves there. Vegas ended up losing some key players because, of course, we talked about Marchessault going to Nashville. We talked about Stevenson going to Seattle. William Carrier goes to Carolina. Martinez goes to Chicago. Anthony Mantha went to Calgary. So they ended up losing some pretty decent players right there. But Vegas, however the hell they do that, they find a way to like literally just add players after players after players like there's no tomorrow.
No, and you're right, but a lot of these teams stay where they are, and they could just, I don't want to get bought out, or I want to stay within my contract with Buffalo because he was making all that money, and
Mm-hmm.
then they buy him out, and the Sabres have to pay him until 2030, and I told is not getting any, but he,
Really does. And then another big move that came out. How about the Montreal Canadiens? How they went in big on their future by signing their draft pick Yaroslav Slavkovsky to an 8-year, $60.8 million deal.
Jesus Christ, that is way too goddamn early to do that.
Yeah,
He's 20 years old, Montreal. Is there some?
he's not even at the end of his entry level contract yet, and you're already signing him to almost $61 million.
Yeah, 60.8 million dollars for 8 years. So his cap hit for the Canadians is 7.6 million, and he's only 20 years old. Why the fuck are the Canadians
Oh,
giving a 20-year-old all that money? I feel like you haven't heard his name in since he was drafted. I mean, I
yeah,
know he can be good. I'm not saying he isn't, but what like, I can even look at his stats right now for the Montreal Canadiens, and you tell me if he's worth, the money that he was given by the Canadians. Like that is insane.
yeah. I was gonna say now, if he pans out and turns out to be a great player, let's see, 5 years down the line, then maybe it's not a bad deal. But right now, like, what are you thinking, Montreal?
Oh my God. Okay, so to give you an idea about his career stats, just this past year, the 2023-24 campaign, he has 50 points in 82 games. So he has 20 goals and 30 assists, and he was at minus 19.
Yeah, no thanks.
Yeah, this is a pretty risky move to be made by the Canadians. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Like, I understand that he was your first round pick or your first overall pick from like a few years ago, but it's not like, I mean, let me put it to you this way. If you look at his rookie season, 2022-23, this was 2 years ago at this point.
yeah,
He played in 39 games. He only had 10 points, four goals and six assists, but he was injured. So I can't give him that much crap. And he was a rookie at the time. Now, in his second year with the Canadians, he's definitely improved. But 8 years for that cap hit?
yeah, and nearly 61 mil. It's like, I'm sorry, you gotta prove more than that first.
Yeah, and believe me, he also has 88 penalty minutes.
Yeah,
88 penalty minutes. Yeah, 88 penalty minutes. Sorry, my
yes.
tongue is fucked up
88
tonight.
penalty minutes.
Yeah, that's really
Oh,
not a lot.
Jesus.
But he was a minus 19 in his sophomore year. He was a minus 13 in his rookie season, just 2 years
Yeah,
ago.
you regressed.
So, in a way, the Montreal Canadiens are just banking on this one guy just because he was their first overall pick a couple years ago.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know. I think that's a very, very risky move to be made by the Canadians. Like, if he was like a sure thing, like if he, developed into this stellar player within like the first 3, 4 years, then okay, I would
Hmm.
accept that. It's kind
Right.
of like it reminds me of like when the Sabres gave that money, that $7 million cap hit last season or 2 years ago, whatever it was, to Matthias Samuelson. That's what it feels like to me.
Right. And Matthias Samuelsson, as we all know, is like glass.
Which is not good because I want to like the guy, but he's too injury prone. And the Sabres have a big issue to deal with him.
Right.
But, what are you going to do? It's Montreal. Like, yeah, you sign, Slavkovsky, but, you're going to have to build around the dude. But let's talk about Seattle. So,
Hmm.
Seattle, they gave away two big contracts today. One to Brandon Montour and the other one to Chandler Stevenson, and they both signed with the Seattle Kraken. So Brandon Montour's cap hit is 7 by 7, which is $49 million
Yep.
by the Kraken. Yeah, that's a massive extension. Chandler
Mm-hmm.
Stevenson, 7 years, $43.75 million, and his cap hit is
Yeah,
$6.25 million.
he got paid.
Yeah, he did. He got paid big boy bucks. That's
Yes,
for
he
damn
did.
sure.
Yes, he did.
Yeah. You know
So
who had a very weird like free agency thus far is the Red Wings.
it's kind of interesting you mention that because it's weird. We haven't heard a lot about the Red Wings as of yet, but it's like, I don't know, something's brewing over there.
In Detroit, I have no sympathy for that team. But if you want to get an idea of what they've done, you want to hear who Detroit's backup goalies are going to be? Not backup
Yeah,
goalies,
yeah,
they're
sure.
goalies. So, did you hear who they signed?
It's not good. I know
I can
that.
tell you that. Yeah, I can tell
Yeah.
you that already. So let me put it this way: they signed two goalies today. The first one is they signed Cam Talbot to a 2-year deal worth about $5 million, and his cap hit is 2.5 million at 36 years old.
Oh God.
Yep, and the second one made me fucking laugh. Like I couldn't stress this enough. I just have to find it. I just saw his name. Unless I do this. Hang on 1 second.
Yeah.
That shouldn't take long. There we go. Jack Campbell, that's who it is. 1 year for $775,000 at 32 years old.
Oh, they're screwed.
So so okay. Let me get this straight. You're telling me the Detroit Red Wings, of all teams in the NHL, you're going to tell me that your tandems for next season are Jack Campbell and Cam Talbot.
They're gonna get smoked in that division.
What in the fuck is
That
Eisenman doing?
that was not an improvement whatsoever.
No, it's not. And
That's
I'm
actually a
actually
massive. That's actually a massive downgrade if you look at it.
who was on the Detroit Red Wings last year? Like that's how little I watched the Red Wings. But I'm actually curious, like who is the goaltenders for that team? I sure as hell know that it wasn't Jimmy Howard because that dude's been retired now for a handful of years.
Yeah.
But um so let's take a look. The Detroit Red
So
Wings goaltenders. Just looking it up. Oh, here we go. Here's your answer. You ready?
yeah, James Reimer.
No. It's yeah, James Reimer, Alex Lyon, Billy Husso, and Michael Hutchinson.
Uh.
That is fucking terrible.
Yeah. And they did not get any better.
Yeah, yeah, that's for sure. Oh, and if it makes you feel better, Alex Lyon at 31 years old has the most wins among the four goalies. So Hutchinson went
Oh
21 and
shit.
18 with a .127 goals against average and and had a .904 save percentage and a 3.05 goals against average statistic with two shutouts. Okay, I'm not gonna sit here and say Alex Lyon is some sort of hero because he's not. He's a
Right.
backup goalie. The Red Wings were literally dealing with backup goalies.
And
Are
they
they
still
wait?
are.
Yeah, because they're waiting on Sebastian Costa to fully develop. And the thing is, goalies take 5 years at minimum to develop. And the
Yeah.
Red Wings, I will say though, the Red Wings were not entirely terrible because they were just at the fringe of making the playoffs. But what is it that they think? Honestly, what is their impression to think that Jack Campbell and Cam Talbot, two backup goaltenders, one that got bought out of his contract and the other one is out of his prime, and he's considered a backup at this point.
Yeah.
How is that going to help the Red Wings?
It's not. It's not. And especially when you're a fringe team trying to make the playoffs, you need a goaltender to steal a couple games here and there. I mean, that's the way you get it done. I mean, look at what happened here. Like a perfect example I can give you is look at the Sabres like 15 plus years ago when Ryan Miller was in his prime. When the rest of the team sucked around him, Miller you could easily count to steal 5 or 10 games a season and get you into the first round of the playoffs. But
Right.
also look at his development. He took at least, I want to say, like 4 or 5 years, like in the minors, before he ended up splitting time in net up here, and then he finally ended up taking the reins. So it's about, usually with a goaltender, you have 4 to 7 years of development that really takes place. And Miller had a ton of time in Rochester before he even got to sniff the club up here.
Yeah,
So
I don't.
that's the way that it typically works. So when Detroit wants to, of course, they need to develop their goaltender. Okay, I get that part, but it's like you got to get someone.
Right, but UPL didn't fully find his footing until like last season
Yeah,
because again, it
and of
takes
course he was
usually
hurt.
goaltenders unless you're like Marc-Andre Fleury, then it takes usually goalies about 5 years to fully develop in the NHL.
Right, or unless you're like a Henrik Lundqvist when he was like getting into the NHL in his prime, or maybe
No,
like a
Hank was in the same situation. Hank was, it took him 6 years because when Henrik Lundqvist got drafted, Tom, Mike Richter and Mike Dunham were still in their playing days, and they also had Dan Blackburn. Do you remember that guy?
yeah, I do.
He was famous for having two blockers because there was a problem with his left hand and he couldn't use
Yeah,
catcher glove, so he had to wear two blockers.
yep.
So yeah, so even from that time frame when the Rangers were terrible, Henrik Lundqvist was still developing. So it's not like goalies take an extended period of time to develop and they'll be like, "Ta-da, we're amazing." You know what I
Right.
mean?
Unless you're
Like,
like Dominic Hasek, maybe, but which is still the funniest trade ever for the Blackhawks.
right. Well, I mean,
Oh,
he
that was
was
something different. But even if you look
right.
at other goaltenders, I mean, let's think about it. I mean, Richter took time to develop. Miller took time to develop. I mean, even Roberto Luongo, I think, still took about a good 4 or 5 years before he ended up getting in.
Yeah, I think it took Bobby Lou about maybe I want to say 5 years it took him because
Yeah.
again, if you think about it, the Islanders also had they were also drafting Rick DiPietro first overall. I mean, it still pisses me off to this day, but
Yeah, the
you know,
15-year contract that totally blew up in everyone's face.
thank God the Islanders are done paying him that a contract. But you know what is today though? Is
Yeah,
Bobby
Bobby
Bonilla.
Bonilla day where he gets paid like almost 1.2 million a year until 2035.
God, and the
I was
Mets
gonna
have
bring I was
11
gonna
more
bring that
years of
up.
this shit.
I was gonna bring that deal up because that was like one of the most unusual contracts I have ever seen in sports history.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you could thank the Mets for doing Metsy things.
Yeah, talk about massive deferment of payment.
Yeah, that was a terrible contract. And by that point, Bobby Bonilla will be in his 70s. Think about that.
Yeah, it's crazy. So, yeah, and just in a side note, before we get back into free agency, if I $93,248.20 from the New York Mets, and basically what happens is that's actually mints of his $608 million a year in 2034.
Well,
He's
it's
set for
insane.
life at that point.
It just baffles my mind that the Mets are.
Paying almost $115 million in luxury tax next season. So,
Yeah. Oh,
uh,
so I have a question for you, Tom.
yeah.
Not to get off track of hockey for a minute, because I know today is free agency, but we're still doing Buffalo at the Dark and all that.
Mm-hmm.
Like we okay. You know how we the locker room and all that,
Oh,
and then he
yeah.
ended up going on that trip to Costa Rica,
Uh huh. Yeah,
and
the
then
ayahuasca retreat and
yeah, things just got worse. So not only
oh
is he
boy.
doing that bullshit, it just came out that Aaron Rodgers missed the New York Jets mandatory minicamp due to a pre-planned trip to Egypt.
Oh god.
You
All
can't
right.
make this shit up.
All right. Good afternoon,
And this
everyone.
is
This is
why
this is
nobody takes the Jets seriously.
yep. So here we go. Here's the Professor Aaron Rodgers. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Professor Aaron Rodgers here from the New York Jets. If anyone is wondering, it is time that I have to make my yearly retreat to Egypt, where I have to go ahead and find a little bit more ayahuasca, and I have to get into peace with my inner self and my inner being. So this way I know when it comes time to have my ass whooped later this season and miss the playoffs again, and basically I can come back and tell everybody how I am the man and how the Jets around me are absolutely brutal. But it's no problem because all the ayahuasca in the world will help me make up for it all. It'll help me put myself at inner peace. And basically, when it comes time to retire from this game, I can go ahead, get high, enjoy myself, and basically tell the Jets to fuck off. What the fuck, Aaron Rodgers?
Never a dull moment.
Yeah. Although the first little imitation of Professor, I think, goes on as like one of our top 5 moments of the season because that was just absolutely hilarious how that happens.
It's just hilarious to me to think that
Yeah.
it's just hilarious to me to think that the Jets think that they're superior, and yet their fans get hyped about them every single year, and then it's like, oh, when they actually do something, they shit the bed
Yep.
specifically. I mean, listen, Jets, you knew this was gonna happen when you signed him up. You knew that
I'm thinking just if I'm looking at like what the Jets are doing, so would not be surprised me if he and the GM are going to possibly be axed after the end of this year. But
I wouldn't be surprised. And also into consideration too as well is if you take it into account, what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, Hassan Reddick. So if you
mm-hmm.
take into account with Hassan Reddick, he lied about joining the Jets during mandatory minicamp, and
Mm-hmm.
yet when I told you the whole thing last week or whenever it was about how he knew that John Myers and Brian Hoff were off the team, but he said, "You know what? I lied, so I am gonna hold out
Yep.
until I get a contract." And speaking of contracts, there's more drama coming out from the Lone Star State, which
Mm-hmm.
is the Dallas Cowboys. So did you see that?
I've kind of been out of limbo for a little bit the last couple days, but haven't really been following too much actually over probably almost the last week or so.
Because there's like nothing going on until like
Yeah.
recently, because specifically now we're going closer and closer to training camp.
Right.
But if you want to get an idea of what I'm talking about, CD Lamb is holding out on mandatory minicamp for the Dallas Cowboys until he gets a new deal. So now the Cowboys have a choice to make. You either keep Dak or you keep CD Lamb.
Wow. Good luck.
Yeah, this is going to bite them so hard. Like I don't even know what to say about that.
Yeah.
Considering that you have to pay a top 15 player in the NFL, maybe top 10 wide receiver, period, to a guy who deserves it, but then yet you're letting the final year of Dak Prescott get in your way. And then
Mm-hmm.
the final year of Mike McCarthy's deal as well. So it's almost like a wild goose chase. You know what I'm saying? Like it's insane to me to think that the Dallas Cowboys have put themselves in that situation.
Yeah. It's crazy, but it sucks to be the Cowboys, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, it does suck, but whatever. I
Yeah.
mean, fuck the Cowboys.
I wonder
But
how Millman's thinking about that.
well, Millman's like, well, they got to pay him at some point. I'm like, well, yeah, they have to.
Right.
I think he's more into the idea now because he's been a Cowboys fan his whole life. He's like, you know what? I don't expect anything from the Cowboys, man. I would love to have
Yeah.
all of us hang out together or whatever soon.
Yeah.
I would love that,
Definitely.
but you
Definitely.
can only do so much. But
Yeah.
yeah,
And
but
then yeah, we've only got a few moments left, but yeah, let's go back into some last stuff with free agency, and then let's talk about what to expect over the summer and next season.
yeah, so one of the big news is that just came out is Sean Walker, a 29-year-old defenseman, just signed a 5-year, $18 million contract with a cap hit of 3.6 million with the Carolina Hurricanes.
Wow. Well,
Yeah.
they needed to do something after losing all them players.
Well, yeah, especially losing Brent Pesce.
Yep.
Yeah, they definitely needed to. I should also mention too that Anthony Beauvillier, as you know, was a member of the Islanders
Mm-hmm.
nearly 2 years ago. He
Yep.
signed a 1-year deal for $1.25 million with the Pittsburgh Penguins.
Which it'll help them. I mean, they're gonna need some help though because Pittsburgh at this point they're going into a full out all out rebuild.
Yeah, they're gonna need all the help they can. Same with the Capitals, but
Yeah.
I feel like the Capitals have been a little bit more aggressive in free agency this year than
Mm-hmm.
the Penguins. But
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah. They have been.
Utah. Let's talk about Utah because there's been
Mm-hmm.
a lot of news about Utah, and that is one of the moves that came out today was 35-year-old Ian Cole is signing a 1-year deal for $3.1 million with the Utah Hockey Club. Not to mention what you said earlier is they brought in center Kevin Stenlund for 2 years at $4 million, and his cap hit is 2 million at 27 years old. And
Mm-hmm.
finally, they brought in Kevin Connaughton for 2 years at 1.55 million, only making 775K at 34 years old.
Yeah. So Utah's making some moves early, which is actually a good thing. they need to. So they're kind of shedding their let's do nothing stage from the Arizona Coyotes ownership, which at least the good thing is we talked about last week. Alex Murillo, at least he's no longer involved, and he ain't gonna be involved.
He never will be anymore. At least the bad man is gone, right?
Exactly,
So,
exactly. So
who else have we haven't not talked about yet? I don't think we talked about is Utah. Yes, a $6 million cap hit at 25 years.
really do much.
Okay, yeah, Dallas. We'll talk about Dallas because why not? So the Flyers are in a very interesting situation. So the Flyers brought back Garner Hathaway for 2 years at $4.8 million, and his cap hit is $2.4 million at 32 years old. So that's the Flyers, and
Mm-hmm.
they also brought back Eric Johnson for one more year. I
Right.
forget the cap hit, but I think it's like something less than under a million or something. But I
Yeah,
haven't.
it's pretty cap friendly.
Yeah, for the most part. And you said Dallas, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a couple from Dallas. So Matthew Dumba just got a 2 year deal for $5.5 million with the Dallas Stars at 29 years old.
Okay. Not bad.
Yep, and they also brought back Sam Steele for 1 year for $1.2 million this coming year alone. Brendan Smith signed a 1 year deal for $1 million with the Dallas Stars.
Okay. So they're keeping some depth players in the mix, which is actually not a bad thing. And they had a pretty good run overall this season,
Yeah,
especially when you look at how their team is made up, especially with the fact with their goaltending is in great shape. They're pretty balanced all throughout. So this will help. It keeps that continuity, which is a big thing.
definitely. But I'm not even done yet. So those are not the only moves that the Dallas Stars made. They also brought in goaltender Casey DeSmith for 3 years, $3 million, which is a $1 million cap hit for the next 3 years. And then for Dallas, they also brought back Matt Duchene for 1 year, $3 million. And then earlier today, they brought in Ilya Labushkin for 3 years at
Ooh.
$9.75 million. His cap hit is $3.25 million.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a massive extension for Ilya
Yeah.
Babushkin.
Yeah,
Like
definitely.
it kind of makes out on Chris Tanev because the Stars couldn't bring
Yeah.
him back. So you bring in someone much cheaper than Tanev. I think he was demanding too much. That's what I think it was. But
Yeah.
Dallas,
And
Dallas,
it's not a bad replacement at all. And actually, size wise, I think Labushin's got a little bit more than Tanev.
yeah, and he definitely played for Buffalo for like a season, which I liked
Mm-hmm.
of Labushkin
Yeah,
because
I liked him too.
I wasn't going into it thinking, he was going to be like Nick Lidstrom or something like that. But
Right.
I wasn't expecting that. But it was more as far as that goes, the Dallas Stars, there's a lot that they can improve. Shane Pinto has requested a trade.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So Shane Pinto, who was dealing with some illegal gambling issues, and he was suspended for a handful of games by the NHL for that, for inside gambling,
Mm-hmm.
he just straight up said, I don't want to be in Ottawa. I want to be traded. So I guess to prepare for that, the Senators brought in David Perron.
Ended up not covering yet, and I wanted to bring this out because this was some news earlier. But the NHL is allowing Joel Quenneville to return to the league.
Along with Stan Bowman and Michael McIsaac, which
Yep.
is fucking disgusting.
Mm-hmm. So
That's disgusting.
yeah. Exactly. So now that we got that out, just want to give two quick shout outs. First, of course, friend Cami over at Main 22. If anyone's looking for good hairstyling, go see her. She's out in Williamsville. And then my buddy Chuck over at iBarbecue for You. If you're looking for some great stuff, give him a shout. Eggert Road in Amherst. Order ahead. He always sells out because the ribs and brisket and everything are always good.
Yeah, in general though, season 4 has been fun. I mean, I'll say that for sure. And then I see you in the end of the month as you're coming with
Yeah,
me
only
for a
like
day.
25 days from now, so.
Yep, you're gonna end up seeing me in
Mm-hmm.
Philadelphia for the
Yep.
very first time in your life.
Yep. So we'll do a couple ballparks. We'll go down to Philadelphia. We'll have another Mets game. Hopefully the Mets actually keep winning for a change because that would be nice. So far they've been actually playing pretty well. And then if anyone's looking to see your last two Mets games that you went to, definitely go to Bob's channel over there and take a look. But no, season four has been pretty fun. We ended up for the most part, we stayed on schedule this year. So now it's just next season we're going to make a couple minor changes to the show. We're going to primarily it'll be the two of us, and we'll just have some contributors as we go forward, and then a little bit of some updated looks and stuff that we're going to do. But of course, we always enjoy you guys joining us, and hard to believe it's we're already going on season 5.
In season five, we should also mention something else. We're also getting a new logo. We've been talking about this now for a few weeks.
Yep.
We're probably going to unveil the logo pretty relatively soon. We just have to figure out which one we like. But once we figure out the one we can agree on, we're going to send out sneak peeks of that logo, like little,
Mm-hmm.
teasers and
Yeah.
whatever. And then we'll do a full unveiling of the logo for season five and beyond.
Yeah, and it's interesting too. We've got I think like three of them in contention right now, so it's pretty interesting. And it's similar, but it's gonna be different, and that's a good thing. It's been a while since we've had the same thing for the first 4 seasons, so sometimes, hey, we gotta change it up, make it look a little bit more modern, and do some different things, and that's what we're gonna do. And then of course we'll tweak some other things on the show, and we're gonna kind of look at doing some of the things with like the co-hosting, where it's gonna be two of us will be primary, and we'll have some other contributors come on whenever they can. But there's gonna be some stuff going on, so it'll be pretty much what you've gotten to know, but it'll be a little bit different. And change is not a bad thing. And plus now, the other thing too, we're gonna be on YouTube going forward with the live streams, so that'll be good. You guys will get to see us, and it's a good setup. So we'll do that. We'll have to get your cousin Matt back on one of these days too. We'll have to do that.
Yeah.
Which congrats to him. I know they had their child last week, and then actually congratulations to our friend Doug Lawson too. His son got married over the weekend, so
Congratulations, Doug.
congrats to him. I've met his son. I've met his son's now wife as well too. Good people. So good to see them doing well.
Absolutely. And one last thing too
And
is
actually, if I
before
remember right, I see Doug tomorrow night too. I'm having beer and beef on weck with him.
perhaps, but no. So before you guys ask, when is Buffalo After Dark coming back in season five? That answer is pretty simple, and we usually keep it, and we usually stick to the script every year, and that is it's usually around week one of the NFL season. So this year we're aiming for Wednesday, September 4th as the opening day for season five of Buffalo After Dark. So
Mm,
that's gonna work. I'm telling y'all right now, you are gonna see a lot of changes throughout the summer. Of course, we'll keep Route the 32 going with the Phillies, and then what else are we gonna be doing this summer? We're going when you come down to Long Island for a little bit.
So let's see. We're gonna go see the New York Mets. We're gonna go see, of course, the Phillies play. We're gonna do some different stuff in both cities. So we have that going on. We're basically set for Seattle this coming October. So actually, now that I think about it, we could actually go live from Seattle.
We could. I mean, the only thing we're waiting on as far as planning is tomorrow. We're waiting for 12
Yeah.
p.m. tomorrow for the NHL schedule to come out. So that
Yep.
way we could, once we figure that out, we could start planning, for a Seattle
Mm-hmm.
Kraken game possibly and a Vancouver Canucks game possibly. And if we do get a game of one or the other or both, I would prefer both, but
Yep.
the only thing is with the Canucks game is that we only really get one shot at it to do a Vancouver Canucks game
Right.
because we failed. Because I failed miserably when we were in Philadelphia. I missed the Flyers just by a day around Thanksgiving
Yep. We
when we
missed the
went to
Blue
Philly.
Jackets because they were on the road trip last year in Cincinnati. So
Yeah, and and 2 years ago we missed the St. Louis Blues.
right.
So I hope that we get some sort of luck, and I think we will because we're going to be there for an extended period of time. So the Canucks are definitely in play. The Kraken are definitely in play. So it really just comes down to like how everything plays out. That's
Yeah.
really what it comes down to. But I do think though that there's a lot to look forward to.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as, free agency, of course, or if there's like a big trade, we might go live or whatever. But most of the time, we probably won't. And what's it called? If there is a big trade or if something happens, then we'll talk about it briefly. But outside of that, we're mostly going to be on vacation.
Yep.
So, We're gonna enjoy
Exactly.
our summer break. You know, it's gonna be fun. So, what are you looking forward to the most? The Bronx Zoo, the Phillies game, or the Mets game, or just hanging out with me and Britt?
I think just hanging out and visiting the two cities again. I mean, I think that's really the fun part about it, and just I mean, especially Philly. I mean, I've never been there, so just now I can say I've been to the other end of Pennsylvania. So that part will be pretty cool. Actually, driving through Jersey, it'll be the first time I've ever been to Jersey, also. So that'll be interesting, and yes, I will have the behemoth SUV again, not the truck that I had last week, which I didn't want to give back. But I will say thank you, Enterprise, for always putting me up with a good vehicle, as you always do. So it was that, and yes, if anyone's wondering, I had to have my brakes replaced on my Jeep. So, and because I travel a little bit during the week, I ended up running a Chevy Silverado, full crew cab, 4 door, 5.5 foot bed on there. That thing was pretty sweet. So
Yeah,
it was a nice truck.
yeah.
But that being said, there is actually one other thing I just want to mention before we wrap up. We need to figure out who's taking the Phillies tickets, the extra ones we've got.
Oh yeah, that's right. So I think with that being said, I think we found our winner.
Okay.
And yep, the winner of the 2024 Philadelphia Phillies tickets is Brian Trainer. So Brian Trainer, congratulations. You won the Phillies tickets for July 27th against the Cleveland Guardians. So if you need to reach out to us, um feel free to. We will have the tickets ready for you and you can have them from there on out. So
There you
we
go.
finally got rid of the Phillies tickets. So congratulations. We will see you for Road 32 in Philadelphia in the end of July.
Yep. So, with that being said, wow, hard to believe we're gonna hit 200 episodes next season.
I know, that's insane. Because I remember we did our 100th episode special with like 5 people, and then I'm not really sure.
And then we
I
hit
mean,
150 earlier in the season, and we had I think like 4 on for it or something like that. And
yeah, some crazy number. It's insane that we've been doing the show now for almost 5 years. Like
yeah,
that's nuts. I
I
mean,
know. I
think about
know.
that's insane.
I know. I'm like, it's been a while, but one of the things I will say is, of course, yeah, we've had some different co-hosts and contributors along the way, and of course, we appreciate all the things that you guys have done as part of it. Of course, we appreciate you watching us every week, and being part of our Facebook page, and we encourage you, hey, stick around, and we'll be back in early September. We'll get season 5 going, and then in the meantime, of course, we have Spotify and YouTube. If you guys want to catch up on some of our old episodes throughout the way, by all means, it's there for you.
Absolutely, without a doubt. It's gonna suck not broadcasting, but you know what? I think though, just the time to reflect on season 4, I think we've accomplished so much. But I'm just looking forward to the future of the show. A new identity, a new logo, a completely like a modern update of the show.
Mm-hmm.
Because we've had this starter up design now for about 4 years. I think it's time
Yeah.
for a rebrand, and I think season 5 is gonna look so different. I mean, I'm looking forward to it. And it's not only just here on Buffalo After Dark, it's going to be on Spotify, YouTube. It's going to be everywhere. And it's going to be part of our branding moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
So I am most definitely looking forward to seeing the future of this, franchise, from here on out. So if you guys have any other suggestions that you guys want to throw out there, feel free to let us know. We'll be willing to take questions in the off season. Just hang us, give us a heads up, give us a shout out, say, hey guys, we have some ideas about what you guys can do for season 5. And I
Mm-hmm.
think most of us would gladly, take the advice of it.
Yeah, for sure. So, with that being said, we've come to the end of this season here and the end of the show. We've gone a little over the hour like we normally do. A lot of stuff that we threw in there today. So of
Yeah.
course, as you know, NHL free agency is it's a big day. So we definitely wanted to make sure we covered it. Of course, as we go throughout the summer, if we have like really big sports news that happens with like the Bill Sabres or even throughout the other leagues, we'll let you know.
Or
Of
even the
course,
Islanders, even.
yeah, and of course we got the Olympics coming up in like 25 days, so that'll be the big sporting event of the summer. So we'll have that. But with that being said, let's wrap it up for another season. So of course, thanks again for watching us all year. We appreciate it. We enjoy it. And in the meantime, take care of yourselves and each other. We will see you in September.
Yep. September 4th. We'll see you there.